Today is November 14th, 2024. It's rainy, it's cloudy, and it feels nice. Feels like November, a typical November day where I'm from. I woke up and one of the first thoughts that I had was about people and how they're a trap. I was thinking about my landlord. I rented this house out a year ago with the intention to buy. When I moved in, he said the house was worth $55,000. Now a year later, he changes his tune, says the house is worth $120,000. He also said that regardless of what the market price was, he's the one that sets the price on it, insinuating that he would give me a deal on the house, basically. The reason for that is that I moved in here and fixed the house because it was pretty torn up from the previous tenants. So I took care of everything myself. I've paid my rent on time every month for the past 12 months. I've made the whole deal with this house very easy and smooth. Out of sight, out of mind for him. I fix everything. All he has to worry about is collecting my rent check. Actually, he doesn't have to even worry about that because I put it in his mailbox. I try to make things easy and smooth for people. I don't want to be remembered as a hassle. I want to make a good first impression on people and leave a lasting impression on people that's positive. I haven't been able to stop thinking about this guy, my landlord, because of the fact that he went back on his word. Just another dude that manipulated. He acted like he was my friend. But then once he got me in the house and got what he wanted, he dropped off the face of the earth. And the only time that I would hear from him is when he needed something like money or information on what my USDA loan status was. Anything that's money in his pocket, that's the only time that I'd hear from him. And that's no surprise, that's how most people are. Which is why I think that this thought that popped in my head was so relevant. Most people are a trap. That's the experience in my personal life. And when I look back on my life, and I think there are probably a whole lot of people out there that feel the same way. It would just be better to be alone and to avoid everybody. By the way, this is just a contemplation. It's just a thought in my head. And it's a product of how many bad experiences I've personally had in life when it comes to people. But we can't exist in a vacuum. We need other people in our lives. And I'm lonely. Super lonely. I have been most of my life, even as a kid. And even when I was around other people my age, I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in then, and I don't fit in now. The amount of bad experiences with people far outweigh the good experiences. In fact, there are so many bad experiences that it's hard for me to dig through those to find a good one. And honestly, I feel like most of the good experiences I've had are usually just me making myself happy, or me escaping to some place in my mind that brings happiness, even if it's false happiness. When I was going through all the traumatic stuff as a kid and even into young adulthood and all that, I would dissociate. And as a kid, I had made up worlds and places that I would go to, which all kids do that, but I escaped by pretending. I escaped by listening to a lot of music. I had imaginary friends, and it was a much safer bet. I could rely on it, and I could count on it. But really, all of it was just a manifestation from myself, from my brain. It had nothing to do with other people, just me. I'm sure you've seen the vids on the internet about the guy that was supposedly from the future, or he was in an alternate timeline, and he was recording himself walking around on the streets and public places, police stations, stadiums. He was in an alternate reality where all the people had disappeared, but all the buildings and animals and things still existed. I don't know how the guy or the group of people did it, but it's pretty amazing. He was even leaving objects in places from the future, and then he would send messages to the people in this timeline and tell them the location of the objects. Then people would go locate them, and they were exactly where he said they would be. But the point is, I've had a fantasy in my mind of a place where there are no people. Is this common? Do other people feel this way? Is this a common thing? I suspect that it is. I fantasize about empty cities or empty towns, or just walking or driving down a road where it would just be you, no cars. All the buildings would still be lit up, all the street lights would work. There just wouldn't be any people. Other than wild animal attacks or a natural catastrophe like an earthquake, a tornado, or a hurricane, you'd be completely safe. I mean, maybe that's obvious, but if you really sit and think about it for a second, that's amazing. As long as you don't screw up from user error, you'd be safe. I mean, you could trip and fall and hit your head, or if you're driving a car, you could still wreck the car. You could make a careless mistake. You could still put yourself in danger, but I'd love to know what the stats are on your own user error, or a person's own user error, in comparison to how many people suffer in some way at the hands of somebody else's mistake, or attack, or manipulation, or abuse, ridicule, deception, subversion, bullying, influence, bad influences, like peer pressure. If you think about drugs, someone introduces you, someone influences you, someone encourages you, and pressures you in some way. Even our acts of transgressions, chances are somebody modeled that for us first. Think about Hollywood movies and horror movies, and think about how many twisted, distorted, perverted, demented things, ideas, thoughts, and things that they act out and model, while the rest of us view this stuff. And what does that put in our heads? What seeds does that stuff plant in our heads? And would we have done it otherwise? What if you were born into a world by yourself? No parents, no siblings, no one around you. What would you be like? What would you do? How would you act? I measure out and I weigh the sources of stress and which stressors come from inanimate objects and which stressors come from people. Most of it is from people. I take inventory of the things that are stressing me out right at this moment. I think about my landlord and supposed friend, and how he switched up the price on me. He created stress by being misleading, insinuating that he would set a fair price, acting like my friend. And the price that he set, it's still within my allowance for the USDA loan, but I'll be house poor at that price that he raised it up to. Is the house itself stressful? No, the house is fine. The inanimate objects, again, they're fine. When I go out on the road and drive or ride my motorcycle, where does the danger come from? Again, there can be user error. I should look up the stats on single vehicle accidents and multi-vehicle accidents and see what the stats are. And then, as a person that rides motorcycles, you always have to worry about deer. But otherwise, it's people. It's the people driving the cars. Parked cars are fine. It's not a problem. Then you get another driver on the road. One person wants to drive too fast. Another person's going too slow. Someone's on their cell phone. They're not paying attention. Someone brakes when they're going uphill. Someone has taken drugs and then go drive. Someone's drinking and driving. You're being careful. You're being alert and vigilant. You care about other people's safety. You care about your vehicle. You care about the experience. You care about your performance. But everybody else around you, they're just mindlessly existing. Then you put them behind a wheel, and then take a couple hundred people and put them all in cars. And then maybe take a couple thousand people, and then put yourself out on the road with all those people. It's always people. It's not the cars. You hear this argument a lot when it comes to personal protection devices. The device can't do anything. It's the person. People are out of their minds. People are fickle, gullible, selfish, prideful, careless. People are driven by emotions. That includes myself. It's a fatal mistake with people. I'm trying to deprogram myself from acting off of emotional impulses. Let me think. What other stressors are there? My girlfriend. At the moment, things are going okay. And she's actually acting like she's happy to have me around, but I also just spent the last 2 months renovating her living room for free. I did just around $4,000 worth of labor for free. So at the moment she's happy with me, but how long will that last? Because it always cycles around, just like a clock, just like clockwork. So is that a source of happiness or a source of stress? It's still a source of stress, because I'm just waiting because I know it's coming. When she cycles back to the negative behavior towards me, I just bought her a TV too. Her birthday's coming up and I went and bought her a TV, a replacement TV, because hers is starting to make weird noises. It's on the way out. I must be a complete idiot. I get caught up in the warm fuzzy feelings because she's being nice to me. I'm like the idiot that just keeps coming back for more. Then my dad, he stopped talking to me on the phone because we had a discussion about some controversial issues with certain ailments and certain cures and a little bit of political stuff. He just stopped talking to me. That's what he's done throughout his life. He'll just cut you off. If you don't agree with exactly how he feels and what he thinks, then he'll just cut you off, punish you with the silent treatment. So I called him a couple days ago. I don't think we had talked on the phone for a couple years. We just text here and there. I called him, I called him because I missed him. I hadn't talked to him. And I figured I would use the current house situation and the USDA loan and the issues with the landlord. I would use that as a reason to call and just ask him some advice. And he really didn't have much to offer. And in my head, I thought that he would. But he was condescending, talked down to me, arrogant, all the same stuff. He's not going to change. People don't change, especially when things are going their way. People don't change. They just get more arrogant. So that was another letdown. And honestly, it makes me want to drink. It makes me want to smoke. It makes me want to be self-destructive. And then I have to fight against those things. What other inventory? What other people? Neighbors? Are they a source of happiness or are they a source of stress? And again, they're stressful. They're a source of stress. Chaos, loudness, disruptive. This area literally looks like a junkyard. I wish I could take pictures and show you guys. It looks like an absolute dump around here. And I like to make my environment nice. I like to make my house smell good. I like to make the outside look nice, not just for myself, but for other people, thinking that it would make them happy. Honestly, I think filth and squalor is what makes people happy around here. I think they feel most at home when they live filthy in houses that smell like piss, smoke, grease, filth, dirty bodies, sweat, dirty clothes. You can smell it wafting out of their house, from your house, if the wind blows the right way. It stinks. I just don't understand how people can live like that. I don't understand that culture. I think I just had a dream about my older brother, the one that terrorized me and tormented me. I have dreams about him frequently. I tried to make amends with him for the benefit of my mom because my mom is basically bedridden and wheelchair bound. And she can hobble down the stairs to her car and drive around. I built her this railing system so she could get in and out of the house up these stairs that are pretty treacherous, especially in the wintertime. I had reconnected with her a couple years ago, and she had hip surgeries, and she was pretty handicapped, and her life was in disarray. And I went back to the house and fixed a bunch of stuff, and fixed her computer, and tried to improve her quality of life, boost her morale. And I tried to make amends with my older brother, and his life is also in disarray now. He was using an iPhone from like 2014, so I put funds together. I even got other people to chip in and got him a new phone. And then after he got his phone, he just stopped contacting me. He acted like he wanted to reconnect and wanted to make amends, and then it just went back to the same old thing. Again, people don't change. I used to think I could help people change. I used to have more hope that people could change. Not as much now. It is what it is. I just take it at face value and I keep my expectations low. My mom, like I said, she really alienated me, and she favored the other two brothers, one of which now has passed away. And I also feel that she's responsible, in part, for him passing, because she was an enabler, because she was more concerned with being in control of the situation, being liked, adoration, being number one, making sure that her appearance was on point. She played my little brother against me. She played my little brother against my older brother, and vice versa. She played all three brothers against all three brothers. Then she would turn around and say how she wanted all of us to get along. She kept us at odds with one another while she acted like she was the one trying to get us back together or help us reconcile. It's like the Hegelian dialectic, where you create the problem and offer the solution. Now, my older brother, he created a lot of problems on his own, but he and my mother are very similar, so she always sympathized with him, not so much with me. And she also deprived me of my little brother. And my older brother assisted in this too when he came in and put a wedge in between me and my little brother, who grew up with me while my older brother was already gone and out of the house. But then he came back and took over. It's a family full of snakes or wolves. Everybody's got their own agendas. Everyone's trying to use other people in the family or other people in general as pawns in their game, in their strategy, and their agenda. So I go back to help my mom and try to rally around her and boost her morale. And she starts to improve. She starts to feel better. She starts to care more because I feel like she was giving up, and that makes me sad. Even though I don't really like my mom's behavior, her attitude, or what she's done, she's still my mom. I still care. And I hate to think about her just losing her will and giving up and dying. But I noticed the harder I would try, the more she would ask of me. All of my efforts started to seem like they weren't enough, and the better she felt, the more her attitude came back and the more her covert narcissism came back. And this time I called her out on it. And there was a blowout, of course. Another cycle. Same kind of thing with her. It always cycles around. And it cycled back again, and we had a blowout, and I acted on emotion, which I shouldn't have done. But she's so frustrating because she just repeats the same stupid behavior over and over again. Traitorous behavior. It's betrayal. And it feels like rejection over and over again. She started acting secretive and sneaky, and I stopped hearing from her and from my older brother after I tried to help both of them. So that covers some so-called friends, or a landlord that was supposed to be a friend, neighbors that were supposed to be friends, girlfriend. So yeah, that covers friends, family, neighbors, landlord, people out on the road, people out in public. It feels very lonely, and I just have to say that, I do want to have connections really bad, but I'm just not finding people. I'm not finding good people. I know they're out there, but they're hard to find around here. And just to leave things on a positive note, I do have one friend, and we do have that connection. This guy has been broken down like I have and probably has some similar mental ailments or disabilities. I suspect that he's on the autism spectrum, and I know he has PTSD, or more specifically CPTSD, and he just lives a couple houses up. He was a foster kid. His family situation was unstable and chaotic, and he was put in foster homes, and his childhood was unstable and uncertain. And this guy just gets me, and I get him. We don't even have to try, it's just there. He knows exactly how I'm feeling, and I know exactly how he's feeling, which is hopeless a lot of the times. You feel like trash because you're not functioning in society the way that what you might say the majority of people are. You feel like society looks down on you, but this guy gets it. He sends me little Facebook videos and stuff about encouragement. He'll send texts, he'll ask me how I'm doing, and he genuinely doesn't want anything in return except maybe just connection or maybe some encouragement back at him, but that's it. He's not looking for anything. He doesn't have an angle. He doesn't have an agenda. He just wants to be friends. He's looking for a connection, same as me. His motives are pure, you know? He came down and showed me support when my neighbors were ganging up on me, and when my girlfriend was not really showing any support. And he actually helped to thwart that stuff with the neighbors because they're scared of him. So, after this guy was in foster homes, he eventually made his way back to his mom's, and he still lives with his mom now. It's him, his older brother, his mom, his mom's boyfriend. So there are at least 4 people in this house. He's stuck. I know he's stuck. I know that feeling of being stuck. I was embarrassed about my situation and I didn't feel like I could function enough to get out of it, and I know that he feels the same way. So I always tell myself that if I get to an elevated place in life, if I get to a place where I make money, especially if something happens to his mom, because that's the one thing that is most important to him, because he didn't really have proper parents growing up, and I think he's trying to make up for it now or something. You know, our growth gets stunted when we have childhood trauma or a chaotic childhood or family life or whatever. And his mom isn't in the greatest of health. He's afraid she's gonna pass away. She's still physically able. She's not like my mom. This guy's younger than me, so his mom's younger than my mom, but he can see the writing on the wall, and if he loses her, he has nothing. So I tell myself that if I get to a point where I'm in a situation where I could take him in, I would do it in a heartbeat. Whether it's 5 years from now or 20 years from now, he's a true friend, and he has nothing. No money, no vehicle, no girlfriend. He does have a kid, and the mother basically cut that relationship off. So I know he's hurting about that. He feels like a quote-unquote deadbeat dad, but he misses his son. And his dad kind of discarded him, similar to what my dad had done with me. So I know it hurts him to feel like he's repeating the same pattern. But this guy used to ride motorcycles when he was younger, and in the past 5 years I remember seeing this kid riding around the block on what they call a monkey bike. And I started out putting these little Chinese motors on mountain bikes and riding those around. And I still have the bikes and have parts to make a bike for him that runs. So I was going to put one together and just give it to him because I hadn't seen him that happy ever. And then as I started riding more and saw how much happiness that brought me, especially this last summer, I thought about him. It's great therapy for somebody that has PTSD. It makes you feel like a kid again. At least the part of being a kid where you didn't have any cares or any worries. You know, the worries that come with adulthood. So I wanted to share that with him. Maybe make him a bike that he can ride and then graduate up to a motorcycle and then get his permit or license like I did and then ride. The two of us ride together. So that's the ray of light in the dark. When I take inventory of the people in my life, there's one. And if there's one, maybe there's another out there, and it's just a matter of finding it. That's why I always say, don't lose hope, never give up, because you end up in a dark, hopeless place if you do give up hope. But the thought I kind of woke up with was that, for the most part, people are a trap. That's my contemplation. But sometimes it's my belief, and I have to fight against that and realize there are good people out there. I think it's just a matter of finding them. Maybe if I can build up a community on here, maybe I can find some of those people. The world isn't dead. It feels like it is, and it looks like it's headed in that direction. And I think that there are a lot of people at the top that would like us to lose hope. People with no hope are easy to control. Divided families, easy to control. Divided communities, easy to control. People who are depressed and anxious and mentally tormented, traumatized, easy to control in a lot of ways. People, families, communities that are dysfunctional are easy to control. So we have to not give up hope. We have to realize that there are people out there. But there's always that place in my mind where I go frequently where it's a world without people. It's like in a video game where it might just be an empty landscape and it's just you. Or it could be a painting or a movie that depicts that kind of a scenario. All the space, vast amounts of space, no people, all the time, no distractions, no threats, no fear. In so many ways, you'd be free. Most of the time, it's people that make this place dreadful to live in. But the fantasy about living in a world with no people is dangerous because if people weren't getting together, then eventually human beings would cease to exist. The Bible also says that iron sharpens iron. We need people in our lives. And just to close this out, those old black and white movies, the Twilight Zone movies, I think there was an episode called All the Time in the World. There was a guy, I think he was in a library, or maybe he was in a bank. He was in a building that had a vault, like an underground bunker type of a deal. This was at a time when there were nuclear threats. So the sirens go off, and he just barely makes it down to the vault by himself, locks it. Then there's a big shaking, if you will, outside. The enemies dropped the big one, the B to the O, M to the B. So he emerges and he realizes there's nobody, it's just him. And there's rubble, there's wreckage, but some things are still intact, stores are still intact, the food is still there. And his favorite thing to do was to read. And this guy wore glasses. So he makes his way to the library and there are just books, endless books, all over the place. And he realizes he has food, water, shelter, and infinite books that would keep him busy for the rest of his life, with all the time in the world and no people around. He realized his dream had just come true, but his dream came true at the expense of everybody else's lives. He had that fantasy of a city or a town or world without any people. So he picks up a book and he sits on a set of stairs like outside of a municipal building, and he starts to kind of laugh out loud, and he says, all the time in the world. It was like his own personal heaven. And then he trips and his glasses flew off and they hit the ground and they shattered. This would be the part that I was talking about earlier about user error. Well, that happened. His glasses shatter and he can't see. And in one single moment, his heaven was turned into hell. So, I guess sometimes we have to watch what we wish for, right? Now, if I were to continue the script of that particular episode, he could have just gone to an optometrist shop, found a new pair of glasses, and continued on with his fantasy. But the moral of the story is, I guess, to watch what you wish for. Sometimes you get so close to that thing that you want just to have it all taken away. Yeah, we need people. I need people. I want connections with people. I just wish the ratio of letdowns and people that are a source of stress weren't so disproportionate to the amount of people that are actually good, that bring light to the world, that care about the quality of their lives and other people's lives, that have pure intentions, that are genuine, sympathetic and empathetic. It just doesn't add up. The sin in the world seems much, much greater than the goodness in this world. But then you ask most people, and they'll say, I think that people are genuinely mostly good. So I don't know what the ratio actually is. I have such a small little view of the world, but in my small world, it's not good. The people aren't good. Right down to my neighbors, friends, a lot of the time my girlfriend, and even my family. Most of all my family. So I don't know what to think. I'm just going to keep hope. I'm going to stay optimistic, and I'm going to keep searching. Maybe some of you who end up hearing this, maybe you'll be those people. I hope so. And you should too. No matter what you're going through, just remember, never give up. Never give up hope. Those are my thoughts for the day, and I'll see you in the next video.